VE3MIS repeater.
The net will start in 1 minute. I'm just getting my cup of tea and waiting for my microwave. The net will start in 1 minute. The E3JIW. Bob, Mesquite, Texas. I'll do the announcements after. I know you want to be an early check-in and head somewhere else, so why don't you do your check-in now, and then I'll come back with the starting off announcements. The Mississauga Amateur Radio Club 2-meter net.
Okay, very well. I plan on hanging around as long as I can, but it's Kilo Foxtrot 5 Hotel Golf Uniform, Bob North Central checking into the Mississauga Weekly Amateur Radio Net. Thanks, Jim.
Well, starting a couple of minutes late. Good evening. This is Victor Echo 3, Juliet India Whiskey. My name is Jim, and I'm your controller tonight for the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday Night Net. The net is available on the club's VHF repeater and Echolink starting at 20:30 hours, 01:30 UTC, and it lasts about an hour. To participate in the net locally, you can do so on the VE3MIS, VHF repeater, 145 430, -600, and 103.5 tone. For Echolink, you come to TechLink 9229. You can also find a couple of other conferences that are tied in on Echolink. And because of that, we leave a couple of seconds space for all links to drop. The net not only spans Greater Toronto Area region by radio and on internet via Echolink, but we are streaming it on YouTube, which participants should be aware of. This can be useful to all of us, since when you had your time sharing your comments, you can go back and hear yourself and how you sound by replaying the YouTube video. All you have to do is type in the VE3MIS, our repeater call sign, into the YouTube search and look for today's live feed. Be advised that all nets are archived in the live stream playlist on the VE3MIS YouTube channel. I'm supposed to key off now. If you would like to find out more about the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club, visit our website at VE3MIRC.on.ca. I think that's wrong, you know. I think it's been changed. That's my... Okay, yeah. The club's email is VE3MIS@rac.ca. My email's on my QRZ. This is Jim, VE3JIW. The purpose of the net is to share news and views on topics of the day with club members and amateur radio enthusiasts who are both in Southern Ontario and from far and wide. It also provides experience to volunteer operators in the net and emergency operating procedures. All check-ins are welcome. We value participation from outside of our region highly and invite local hams who are non-members to join in today. I'm supposed to trip it again. I'm going to take a break. Can anybody confirm the website? I don't think it's .mark.on.ca. Has anybody got the correct address?
VE3JIW, VA3HES. Good evening, Jim. Yes, the new club website address is Victor Echo 3 Mike India Sierra.ca.
Thank you. I changed the text that I'm reading from. The address, the VE3MIS.ca, and I'm going to say that the email address of rac.ca is probably correct. Funny thing, my Apple, every time I type VE, it becomes a BE. Don't know if anybody else has said that. Anyway, back to the text. We will alternate for check-ins. General check-ins will alternate between RF users and Echolink users. And I don't have any new club announcements other than our antennas at club stations survived the windstorm with very little damage. We'll do short times. When called, you can share any local news or activities. And I don't have a cue of the day again. Well, I'm going to guess. Cue of the day would be good. Do you have a generator? Did you use the generator? Did you rely on batteries? Or did you top it out? For me, it was 10 hours, and yes, generator was used. But I would say with the windstorm that went through Toronto, it's dry. And generators, batteries, candles are just toughing it out. That would be my cue of the day. I think I do that later. No, maybe I do it now. I don't do this enough, but we do general meetings, and we emphasize comradeship and learning, and are open to guests and visitors. I'm going to trip. The general meeting coming up is Thursday this week. Take today's date and add 2. We start at 7 to finish in Mississauga and then join the Burlington Club for their guest speaker at 7:30. So look for the email because it's going to be a different Zoom channel at 7:30 than it is for 7 o'clock. That moves our meetings up ahead of time so we can be sort of finished and then join Burlington. Topic is about Aries this week from a guest speaker. And, well, look at today's date and add 2, and that's Thursday. And the Zoom works really well. And, let's see, we do a Fusion Net at 9 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow on the UHF. It's a Fusion Net. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, we connect to the IRLP 9013 for the Cross Canada IRLP net. A Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m., a net hosted by Reg, VK6DQQ from Western Australia. Again, it's connected up on the VE3MIS website, Expo 229, and you get people from all around the world. If any of these details you would like to find out more, email the E3MIS at rac.Charlie Alpha. And I'm supposed to read this. I'm going to trip it and come back. Outside of our region of Mississauga, we're on Echolink. Mississauga is in the province of Ontario. It's the 6th largest municipality in Canada. It is the western neighbor of Toronto. If I go 2 blocks from me and I throw a rock across the river, I'd be hitting Mississauga. We're sort of the center of the Golden Horseshoe. Golden Horseshoe goes all the way around Lake Ontario, takes you almost to Niagara Falls, 8 million people between all around the shore of the Lake Ontario, all the way to Niagara Falls. Anyway, I'll stand by again. This is long. Okay, this is a direct net. Please check in. Please announce your call sign using phonetics followed by your first name. We do 4 groups of traffic: local, emergency, high priority, mobile, and all of them in between local RF and Echolink. And we'll do a second round so you can come back. And please leave a gap. Try and catch everybody. And watch your time. Past a minute, it starts to get iffy for some nodes. If you have to stand by. And so the question of the day, power outage. Candles, generators, batteries, topped it out, or did it suffer power failure? So I'm going to go stand by. Well, is there any emergency or high priority traffic? Call now, VE3JIW on the Mississauga Amateur Radio 2-meter net. Any mobile or short time station, any mobile or short time station. Jim, VE3JIW, Mississauga Amateur Radio 2-meter net. Hearing no short times, I'm going to call for Mississauga, Toronto, RF check-ins. Anybody coming in through RF?
Victor Echo 3, Whiskey Bravo Foxtrot, Barry, over.
Victor Alpha 3, Hotel Echo Sierra, Mark.
Victor Echo 3, X-Ray Bravo Hotel, Brian.
Victor Echo 3, Whiskey Yankee Delta, Peter.
The first check-in, I think, was Barry. Barry, could you confirm your call sign? I got Victor Echo 3, Whiskey Echo Delta.
VE3JIW, this is VE3 Whiskey Bravo Foxtrot, over.
Okay, now I copied Murray, the ECJMY, but there was somebody in the background near Barry's check-in. Who did I miss?
Victor Alpha 3, Alpha Zulu Alpha, Brian.
Very good. So I got WBF, AZA, JMY, XCH, Peter. I'm having trouble with this iPad. I always want to change what I... Peter, what is your call sign again?
VE3JIW, this is Victor Echo 3, Whiskey Yankee Delta, Peter.
Okay, very good. Whiskey Yankee Delta. Anybody that I missed? Copying WBF, AZA, JMY, XCH, WYD. Anybody I missed in our RF check-ins? Okay. Barry, VE3, WBF, Whiskey Bravo Foxtrot, VE3JIW. Good evening, and cue of the night is batteries, toughing it out, generator, or never lost power.
VE3JIW and the net, this is VE3WBF. We didn't lose power, not even a flicker, which was interesting because a couple of streets north, they lost power. It was an interesting storm that came through for a lot of rain. In 5 minutes, it was gone. Anyways, I don't have a generator and I don't have batteries, so from that point of view, I'm pretty much would be toughing it out. Today, or no, it was yesterday, I got a very good, well, it wasn't contact, I was listening to the East Coast Reflector on VHF from Lancaster, New York, which is just roughly the Buffalo area, which is a good one for me because it was in the morning, and then it just went to heck in the handbasket a little later on. So that's my contact. Back to the net. This is VE3WBF. Over.
It's good for you. Brian, VA3AZA. Battery cutting out generator or never lost any power? VE3JIW for the Mississauga Amateur Radio Community Net.
On net control, this is Victor Alpha 3 Alpha Zulu Alpha, and good evening, Jim. I'm portable, actually I'm pedestrian portable, and no, I didn't lose power at my place, at my QTH. I do have batteries in the event that I need to operate, as people may have recalled from last week. I think I went through 2 or 3 of them, but yeah, we did have a few flickers. There was some flickers in the lights, and then of course the rain and the thunder, but we didn't lose power. I was surprised by some of the wording in the message from Environment Canada I have on my phone. I didn't get a text message. I think some people got text messages warning them of the storm's intensity, but I just picked up a message from their app, and that message just was worded in a way I'd never seen it. I think if they just came out and said this was a dangerous storm, life-threatening, maybe they used that word, I can't remember, but I remember being startled by the message, and that's my experience of it. VA3A today, over to net control.
It was interesting. We lost power early on around 1 p.m. Came back about 1:20, 1:30. I thought that was great. I go out at 3 o'clock, come back, no power. And it was off for most of 10 hours. Now, I had generators, so I was able to feed the internet and feed the fridge. At the cost of gas, I didn't run all of 10 hours, but still, I was happy having the generator, not knowing whether it could be a day or 3. I looked on the hydro map, and there's still people within blocks of me that are showing no power. And there's a pile spread out across Toronto, no power, and the green dots are between 1 and 50 people. So I think we got off very lucky because nothing got wrecked or damaged or destroyed. Anyway, Murray, VE3JMY, good evening. And how did you do with the storm?
VE3JIW, VE3JMY and the group. Good evening, Jim, and everybody on board. Did pretty well. I think I agree with you. We got off pretty luckily. I have a friend whose son is up at Peterborough, and they were talking about getting power back on Monday evening. Don't know whether that happened or not, but in my location at Dundas and Winston Churchill, we had power out for 3 hours starting at 6 p.m. I do not have a generator. I just had an early night. My wife got out some decorative oil lamps that actually work, which I thought was a little bit dangerous. And we got flashlights and a transistor radio to hear the news, which really wasn't anything more than what was apparent. I'll just end it by saying, in terms of the changing season, I walked in David Ramsey Park in my neighborhood and saw the swimming pool full of water this afternoon, evening. Back to you, Jim.
Yeah, well, it amazed me that 9 people died from trees falling and 1 person died from a boat getting flipped. I don't know what you could do about a boat with the speed which the storm came up. Don't know if life jacket would have made a difference or not, but I think 9 people getting hit by falling trees. Scary stuff. Truly scary. By the way, I live in an area where all the electrical is in the air, strung between poles, which makes it much more vulnerable to large trees and branches. Whereas a lot of Mississauga is underground, so it's a lot harder to tear the wires off somebody's house. I think it was 2013 or so, where I actually saw a branch come on. I was driving up the street and saw the branch come down and rip the wires off somebody's house. Anyway, we got lucky on that storm. It was out for 5 hours, the ice storm. Anyway, Brian, VE3 X-Ray Bravo Hotel, your turn.
VE3 JIW, this is VE3XBH. Good evening, Jim, and hello to everybody on the net. And yeah, that was quite a storm. We didn't really do too badly. We had just a bump in the hydro, so we didn't really lose it per se. It just kind of a flicker, and that was about it. But I have one of these, I guess they call it a solar generator. It's basically a battery with an inverter in it. And we had that ready. Didn't have to use it, but it's kind of handy with, especially with the LED lights. I can put 2 or 3 lights in, and it'll run off that thing for about 3 or 4 days. So at least we would have some light, but I don't have a generator there. But strangely enough, and I'm going to drop for a sec. Strangely enough, the alert system was, we have two cell phones, and they're both the same make and model, and one got the alert text and the other one didn't, which I thought was a little odd because they usually both get them. And when we happened to have the TV on, and when the TV alert came on, all that came up were hashtags on it. So we got the alert sound and we got the red screen, but no message. So, but anyways, that was about it from us. We didn't do too badly. We had a couple of branches down in the neighborhood, but nobody hurt, and they're pretty much cleaned up now. So that's about it, Jim. I'll send it back to you. VE3JIW, VE3XBH.
Oh, very lucky for you. Peter, VE3WYD, good evening.
VE3JIW, this is VE3WYD. Hello, Jim, and everyone on net. Yeah, the storm. What were we doing? We were going to Niagara, and we were on the QEW, and we got that alert through the radio. We're listening to the radio in the Jeep and driving down the highway, and the traffic slowed down, and the wind came up, and dirt and debris was flying everywhere. And then the rain started, and I managed to get off the highway at Appleby line because I figured they'd shut down the Skyway if it was a big storm, and we headed back home. But there was a lot of rain, a lot of water on the road, but we were fine. Up here in Brampton, power didn't go out. Let me drop. But as one of the other hams pointed out, that most of the hydro here in Brampton is underground, as I guess in some places in Mississauga, which I think played a big part in maybe not losing power, because a lot of the power outages I've seen on TV was due to trees or fallen poles out Ottawa way. So I guess we were lucky. Back to you. This is VE3WYD.
Very good. Well, I'm going to have a second part of the question when we start round 2, but I'm going to go now for any internet check-ins. Anybody coming in via Echolink?
Alpha 3, Whiskey Mike, John in Niagara.
Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, Gary.
Mr. Kilo 2, Delta.
Well, I'm going to go for a recall here. After the E3 Golf Delta Zulu, I got I think Victor Echo 3 Delta something. I'd like you to come back, and then I heard somebody with a creaky chair.
Kilo 2, Delta Yankee, VK2DY, Robert in.
Okay, well, I got VH3 Whiskey Mike John, the A3GDZ Jeffrey, unknown, and VK2 Delta Yankee Robert. And since I see him on the list, I'm going to throw the A3 Hotel Echo Sierra onto the list. And start off with the A3 Whiskey Mike. Good evening, John.
V3JIW and the Mississauga Net. Good evening, Jim, and to all on the net. I guess your topic is the storm. Happy to report that the Niagara Peninsula was spared of the storm. At least we didn't get anything here in Niagara on the Lake, so we're right on the Niagara River. No issues with power. I mean, rain. Yeah, we had some rain, but not even all that much that I can talk about. I've had more discomfort personally due to power interruptions that are short duration, maybe half an hour during the night, because I use a breathing machine, and when that thing turns off and you got the mask on, it's quite uncomfortable. So, anyways, I do have batteries, and I do have a backup generator as well. And I'll pass it back to you. VE3JIW from VA3WM.
Oh, I've never seen those massive big batteries. It really gives you comfort level to have the emergency supplies. VA3 Golf Delta Zulu Jeffrey, come again. Come on to the Mississauga Amateur Radio 2-meter net.
Yeah, good evening there, Jim, and hi to all on that. It's Gary. You were close, Jim. Victor Alpha 3 Golf Delta Zulu in Toronto. I see the ham conference is connected with us now. Excuse me. They usually come in about 20 minutes after the net starts. In case they don't know what we're talking about, I know Robert's going to come in a minute. We're talking about the derecho storm that swept through the whole province of Ontario on Saturday. It's a straight line wind front with 130 kilometers per hour winds here at Toronto Airport, 140 kilometers per hour in Ottawa. 500,000 people lost power in Ontario and Quebec, and 10 lives were lost. So pretty much one of the most serious things since the ice storm, I think. All I have is battery backup on my handheld and gas in my car and gas in my barbecue. Fortunately, we didn't need it here, but there were branches down all over the place, and obviously much more serious just a bit north of us. In fact, my daughter, who lives in Ottawa, she is still without power 3 days later, and they don't expect it to be restored for another 2 to 3 days. And she had to throw all of her food out, and she's using her car to keep her cell phone charged. So that's the story there. I do have one more thing to say about it. Please stand by. Yeah, just before the storm, I was tracking it. There was a report of a tornado, which had been confirmed today. I was hoping that the provincial network, the PROCOM network, would have been activated. It is related to ARES, that's my understanding, the Emergency Response Group. Nobody was on until Environment Canada issued a warning on TV and cell phones, and that was only 10 minutes before we got whacked with the storm, so wasn't very useful. I was trying to get reports from farther upstream, like in London, Ontario, and Windsor, to see how severe it was going to be, but I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and just some local people came on as the storm was hitting. So a little bit disappointing there from the ham radio community, although it was useful locally to see who had power and who had branches down. That's my report. Just one and done for tonight, Jim. Back to you. This is VE3 Golf Delta Zulu, Gary in Toronto.
I remember when those nets came up. I remember listening to the movement of a storm, and it was coming down from Sudbury, and they said it's traveling at 80 kilometers an hour. So I know from where I was to where the storm was, I could safely head out and not be in a small boat on a small lake in a horrible windstorm. So I headed up the lake, and I got ready for the power to go out, and it did about half hour after we got there. But knowing the position of the storm because of people in the weather office and a net set up all across Ontario was phenomenal. Yeah, if that's not happened, that is very sad. VK2 Delta Yankee Robert. I was talking about a net that covers, linking stations from Toronto to 200 miles north. And my journey ended 100 miles north of Toronto, but the net kept me connected. VK2 DY, come into the net. The E3JIW.
Oops, just a sec. Trying to have a mouthful of food there. Robert, Victor Kilo 2, Delta Yankee in Kellyville Ridge, New South Wales. All part of the urban sprawl that is Sydney. Well, we have about 16 degrees Celsius. Sun is shining. Partly cloudy sky today. Actually quite a nice day for this late in autumn. We got down to about 8 degrees Celsius last night. Usually in winter we get down into the single digits Celsius. And that's it. We're pretty mild climate here in Sydney, actually. We're about 34 degrees south, and Sydney, and about the same south as Los Angeles is north, I guess. Anyway, other than that, we've got a new Prime Minister. That was fast. Election was Saturday, and Monday we had a new Prime Minister. So less than 48 hours between the end of the election and the new Prime Minister. So that was pretty quick. But it's a pretty decisive change election. So the whole country has swung politically left. Anyway, other than that, well, again, our climate is so mild here. We don't have that many problems. But the big problem we have here is up in the foothills. We get lots of bushfires, and we get lots of floods lately because of La Nina. So we've had a lot of problems with areas getting flooding. Places under 10, 15 meters of water even, amazingly enough. The poor city of Lismore got completely underwater. So it's a pretty bad situation. They're talking about moving the city, actually, because rebuilding it after being underwater that far just doesn't make any sense. So they want to move it higher, I think. Hopefully they do that. We don't have a whole lot of emergency things to communicate with on here, unfortunately, so I'm not sure that I can add anything to that part of the discussion, but thank you very much for taking my check-in. VK2DY, back to net.
I was visiting with friends down in California out in the desert, and they took me where a spot where it didn't look that dangerous. You're on a road, and you see land, lower down off the road. Seems like a fine place to be, and they explained that when they get heavy rain, somebody was killed right where we were. The car was washed off the roadway into much deeper water. It didn't look dangerous. So local information, I guess, could be important for travelers. But anyway, Mark, I penciled you in. VE3, Hotel Echo Sierra. Are you with us tonight, Mark?
VE3, JIW, VA3HES. Good evening, Jim, and all on net. Mark here at the home QTH in Mississauga. I think earlier when you were taking RF check-ins, I might have got stepped on by someone. I'm not using a ton of output power here in the shack. Not much to report. Thankfully, we did not lose power here in my end of Mississauga. I think we did have a brief power outage for maybe a few minutes, just long enough to make the clocks go all squirrely. But my parents were out in Etobicoke for a few hours. And actually, I got some friends that live out in Uxbridge, and one of them is an IT specialist. I'm going to drop for a second. And my friend Doug was the guy that the city of Uxbridge called to come bail them out of not having any internet access whatsoever. And he has an IT consultancy firm, and he has a couple Starlink units. So he showed up with a Starlink and got them up on the internet. So I thought that was rather neat. But no damage here at home except for my dipole. Came off at one end out of one of the trees and wound up at the neighbor's backyard, but that was a quick fix. No big damage of any sort around here. And I've got a 2200 watt generator sitting in the shed, and I've got a couple lithium batteries always charged, so I was ready, but thankfully didn't need it. Back to you, Jim.
Well, very good. I'm going to call for check-ins, and then after that, we'll get into round two. So the added question for round two is when it's storming and you could get power fluctuations and power instability, do you unpower things like fridges, freezers, other things that can be messed up? Because at times when the power comes back, it doesn't come back cleanly. I had an outage event up north, and I couldn't get a tape to play. I had no volume on my stereo. Trying to play a tape, and I noticed the lights are dim on the tape deck, and went to radio, and I couldn't get any volume. Grabbed the meter. I had 55 volts on what should be 110. I called my mom, and I said, "Turn on your living room light. Does it look normal?" And she couldn't be sure. I said, "Go unplug the fridge." All the neighbors around me, I walked up to the next neighbor and I could hear their freezer humming because at 55 volts, there's not enough current to trip the safety. There's not enough power to spin the motor and it'll sit there and cook. They unplugged theirs, but everybody else was buying new fridges and freezers after that event. I don't know why we only had 55 volts. It wasn't a local damage. It was widespread over few miles. So when power is unstable, I tend to unplug things that can get burned up. Anyway, let's see who else. Any new check-ins on RF? Any new RF check-ins for the Mississauga 2-meter net? I hear nobody on RF. I hear nobody on RF. Did anybody else copy anybody on RF trying to come in? Okay, any new check-ins from Echolink, the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club 2-meter net. My name is Jim, Victor Echo 3, Juliet India Whiskey. Bob, KF5HGU. I caught you at the beginning in that. We're doing round 2. Power outages and the unplug equipment to protect it, as power may be unstable and may not turn on cleanly.
VE3JIW, KF5HU. Well, the first question you had, I don't have a generator, and the only reference I had was, last year when we had a ice storm, and I was fortunate. Mine was out for about 8 hours. There were some people who were out for weeks before they got it on, and a number of people lost their life in the state of Texas because they couldn't get cold. And I did hear about the storm that y'all had and the fact that there were fatalities from a tree downing. That was something. I did hear about that on the local news. Let me unmute it a minute. I can't remember what the second question was that you had, but we're doing good, and I always enjoy listening to the Mississauga Net and what's going on with you guys. Take care, my friend. Very good job. Thank you very much. VE3JIW, KF5HU.
The second part, if you're starting to get power flickering where it might be turning on and off, do you turn off stuff in your house to protect it from being damaged as the power comes back on?
Well, now I remember when you started saying that, then yes. And I thought about that. I used to, and that's just part of the way I grew up, I guess. And when the power was off, I always go turn things off to make sure that the power was back on before I turned it back on, because I was under the impression that you could get damaged. Now, an electrician or someone else told me that recently many of the appliances are triggered, and of course you mentioned the safety part of it, but in the case of 55, it was just below the safety trigger, so those folks ended up losing that thing. So there's pros and cons. You're really not supposed to have to nowadays, but your example just in shows that you have to be better safe than sorry, I guess. Thanks for that. K5HQ.
Well, when I went up to my neighbors, I could hear the motor on their freezer just humming. It wasn't turning. And it wasn't on long enough to cook. But at 55 volts, there's not enough current to trip the overload. I don't know if you've ever seen the overload on a freezer motor compressor. It's not a very sophisticated device. But anyway, Barry, VE3 Whiskey Bravo Foxtrot for round 2. Good evening.
Good evening, Jim, VE3JIW. This is VE3WBF. Nothing more to report. I know that up in when my parents had the cottage up in Muskoka, when a storm came through and the lightning came crashing across the house, the cottage, everything went off. Phones rang, and freezers turned on and off, and refrigerators turned on and off. It was quite an interesting experience. But down here, don't see anything. When it goes off, it goes off. When it comes on, it comes on. So I'm going to take it back to the net, and this is VE3 WVF, over.
Very good. And Brian of the A3 Alpha Zulu Alpha, round 2.
On net control, this is Victor Alpha 3 Alpha Zulu Alpha, still pedestrian mobile. You might hear some traffic in the background, but not much to add there, Jim. Just thought I'd throw in, though, speaking of the some of the damage during that storm, there was a lady who drowned, I think, in the Ottawa River. Her boat was overturned. That was kind of a shocking little bit of news. And I was thinking the day before the big storm, there was a tornado in Michigan. I think it was on Friday. It was quite a bad one, too, with winds of around 140 or 150 miles an hour. So, yeah, it's been a pretty bad week. As for the power coming back on, yeah, I always worry about that. But I guess the computer turns itself off, so, you know, that shouldn't cause any problems. But anyway, over to you, VA3A. Oh, and thanks very much for doing the net. VA3AZA over at net control.
Very good. And after summer, the power computer being turned on, I open up a power supply in my nephew's computer, and capacitors exploded in the power supply. And it hadn't been on all summer. So something gave it a poke. And Murray of VE3JMY, good evening.
Again, Jim, I'm portable from the front porch. I'll copy.
You are okay, sir. You are okay.
Jim, and yeah, we don't turn anything off. I seem to recall in the day, as a young fellow, we did, but so long ago. Along those lines, and our topic in general, I did report a dangling wire on Thorn Lodge Road. It may have been a telephone wire. It was hanging off a hydro.
Murray, you're dropping in and out. I think that is possibly end of battery. Battery copied, a wire hanging off a telephone pole, made possibly a telephone wire. Well, I guess, Murray, sorry. I guess that's it for RF tonight. Brian, the E3XBH, we're in round 2, the E3JIW.
VE3JIW, VE3XBH. Good net this evening, Jim. Thanks for taking care of it. I don't really have much more to add. I don't generally turn everything off when the power goes. I used to do that a little bit, but not really so much anymore. Most of the everything that's got a remote in it is already powered up, whether you turn the button off or not. So so I just kind of leave it at that and keep my fingers crossed. Anyways, Jim, I'll say 7-3 to everybody, and thanks again for doing the net, and we'll just listen along till the end. VE3JIW, this is VE3XBH.
VE3MIS.
Okay, and for round 2 on the Mississauga net, Peter, Vector Echo 3, Whiskey Yankee Delta, the V3JIW for the net.
GIW. This is VE3WYD. In regards to your second question, do we unplug things when the power go out? No, I haven't been doing that at home. Never really thought of doing that. Kind of makes me wonder because at work when we have a power outage, we knock down all the machines because they're computers in them and they're very sensitive, the CNC machining machines. So, yeah, we don't do it at home, but we do it at work. So there's my answer. 73. I'll be listening on. Back to you.
Very good. And Victor Alpha 3, Whiskey Mike John, VE3GIW with the net.
Okay, Jim. I guess to answer your question, do we turn things off?
John, I'll give you a call in a minute.
VE3JIW from VA3WM, back with a fresh battery. Do we turn lights off and things off? I would, generally, we don't do that. If I were to see lights flickering on and off, I'd think real quick and probably start turning things off. Just to keep them safe. But anyways, a great question on the net, Jim. And I'll say 7-3 for now, VA3WM. Back to VE3JIW.
Okay, you came back in just fine. Great business, fine business. And thanks for coming by. Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zoo, Jeffrey. This is round 2. Okay. VK2, Delta Yankee, Robert, come ahead.
Okay, 2DY. I don't really have much to add at the moment. Just getting lunch prepared here. So I'll say thank you for a wonderful net. And 73, VK2DY.
Very good. And Mark, VA3HES. I'll let you come in. You got lots of stuff that's delicate, so maybe you do turn off or unplug stuff when there's power instabilities.
VA3HES returning. Yes, Jim, I do. Actually, when I bought the house here 9 years ago, one of the first things I instructed my ex-YL to do, if I am not home and there is a power outage, go downstairs and flip the main breaker. The power's off already, so the regular procedure, this is actually something my dad and I would do when I was much younger, just kill the master breaker, shut off all the branch circuits, and when you peer out the window and see the street lights come back on or the neighbor's lights come on, you go downstairs, you turn on the master, and just keep adding a few branch circuits at a time so as not to put another big surge load back onto the grid, because that could very much trigger another blackout. We'll drop for a second. And all the sensitive stuff here in the shack and the AV and IT stuff for the house is all on some really heavy-duty power filtration. But we have had at least 2 incidents I remember where we had some pretty wild voltage fluctuations. I guess there was a car accident nearby where a pole was coming down carrying high voltage lines feeding the neighborhood, and I scrambled to unplug stuff and go run down to the panel to flip the breaker off before anything blew up. That's all for now, Jim. Back to you.
Okay, well, that concludes the net. Unless there's any last-minute check-ins, I'll be reading my announcements. Okay, well, thank you for joining us tonight. If you have any comments, thoughts, or suggestions, you can contact us, the club, via email at VE3MIS@RAC.CharlieAlpha. And I'm going to close the net, return the repeater to general use, and it'll stay on Echolink for a few minutes, and then it automatically closes. But thank you for coming by the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday night net. Come by tomorrow at 11 for Cross Canada net. Come by on the UHF at 9 for the Fusion net, and Friday come here at 8 p.m. Eastern for Reg's net from Western Australia. With that, 7-3 from Victor Echo 3 Juliet India Whiskey.
Jim and all on net. Victor Alpha 3 Hotel Echo Sierra going clear in QRT.